Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Russell Hobbs Show. We have a special guest today. Frank Myer is with me in the studio. Good morning, Frank.
Hello, Russell. How you doing, bud?
Doing great, and so good to see you and have you today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, so as you know, we showcase people in arts and entertainment and all kinds of different type people in several, variations of endeavors. And Frank's with us today, and he's an awesome writer, among other things. So, Frank, let's start off with, what was your life like when you were growing up? Just tell us a little about you as a child in high school.
As a child in high school? Yeah.
And
still haven't, some would say, I still haven't grown up. So I grew up in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia. A lot of people are familiar with that little school out there, Villanova. Won a couple of basketball championships. So that was the area that I grew up in. Went to Haverford High School. Great place to live and grow up. Philadelphia is just a fantastic place because you're not very far from the shore. You can go down to Baltimore and D.C. You can get up to New York, and as a family, we traveled a lot, just, car trips going different areas up to New England. And it was just a great place to live. And high school was just, I guess, normal old high school like everybody had. But Haverford High School, the Mighty Fords. We were the Mighty Fords is what we were. And now
it's funny. I love the way people come up with their high school mascot names.
Now I'm just an old Ford. It used to be a Mighty Ford. Now I'm just an old cranky Ford.
Yeah, that's one of those. It's like a default name. Okay, we'll be the Fords because they had meetings, and I guess the Patriots was already used, and the Liberty
Eagles
Bells
was taken.
The Liberty Bells, that was gone.
Yeah,
but that is a beautiful area.
It is gorgeous.
I've been able to go to Philadelphia, just cruising around in D.C. at night, particularly walking around.
Yeah,
and that must have been a beautiful place to grow up and like you said, on the road trips with your family, all the historic things right there.
Yeah, I wish I was more of a history buff back then, but even as a kid, that you appreciated the area. We were right outside, not very far from Valley Forge State Park with George Washington and all that stuff, the crossing the Delaware. It was just and it is a fantastic place to live. And, I enjoy my trips when I go back up there.
That's awesome. So now go into high school. Here's what I want to know.
Okay.
So Frank in high school, you're walking down the hall. Give me a description. Who was this Frank Myer guy?
That's a good question because, your perception is probably not what actually happened. I was I guess kind of a quiet kid. I tried to participate in sports. I wasn't that good. But I had a lot of friends. One of the things I would say is I had a lot of friends in different groups. So that was always interesting to me to see the different groups and, cliques in high school. And we had a mix of a lot of different nationalities and things in the high school. It was a good place to grow up. I still have friends from that time that we keep in touch. And I'm very thankful for where I grew up in the high school that I went to.
Well, that's so cool. So you were one of those guys that reminds me, I did a piece of artwork way back in the 80s. It was a kid with like braces and kind of, finding who he was. And his dad was yelling, it's like, art, be a sport, Yeah. You kind of reminded me of that because everybody has to try sports because you think, man, if I'm good at sports, that'll be fun and I'll get the chicks or whatever. But everybody's not meant to do sports, right?
No, and my parents didn't push me one way or other. They were I grew up in a very loving and a very, I guess, comfortable and gracious family. I never felt any pressure like, oh boy, if I don't make the team, I'm going to let dad, dad's theory was, try it, see if you like it, do something else, see if you like that. So it was a good environment.
So when did you get your first? I mean, were you interested in literature and writing as a young high school kid? Where did your
So that's a
love-
great question. And I was thinking about it when getting ready for this. So I didn't like straight English because, the grammar part, you have to learn. But man, I really loved.
So you went to gay English?
We had a lot of. I went to like remedial. I tell people in high school I had 2 years of French class. I had French 1 twice. So, but I love the elective English courses you could take. Like I took a course on humor. I took a course on speech. I took a course, on those and those were great, creative writing. And I did really well. As a matter of fact, one of my fun stories to tell, I think it's fun anyway, you can tell us it's not or edit this out, but in speech class,
just so you know, there's no editing here. This is a live
this
show.
Is live. Okay.
Via satellite. That's like the highest of all satellites. And there's no better get it right now.
Right now, pressure's on.
Okay.
So anyway, my speech, this was a speech class, and my speech was how to make cookies. And so I went, there was no class in the classroom before our class. So I went in there before, nobody was in there, not even the teacher. And I took a plate of cookies and I put them inside the podium, And then I had all my cookie making stuff out on the table. And so I showed them how to make cookies because one of the things I've always cooked or baked or whatever. And so I went through all the methods and I said, okay, now once you do your cookies, you put them on, shape them into cookies and then you put them in the oven. And I stuck that plate of raw cookie dough inside the podium. And I said, you wait 15 minutes and pull out cookies. And then I pulled out the cookies that I had snuck in there before. The class loved it. They went crazy. And I said, all right. And then I handed them out to everybody.
Dude, you were like already theater,
They loved it. They loved it. The teacher wasn't that excited, but the kids loved it. And then, so that's when I had the spark. And it took me a long time to get back around to that. Matter of fact, Don Tavani, I remember one of my English classes, Don Tavani sat in front of me, and he turned around to me one day in class and said, Frank, you are really good at this story stuff. You're really good at storytelling. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. But I didn't know what to do with it, so it just kind of sat there and simmered for years and years and years.
Right. Yeah. It's sometimes, that's the hardest thing about growing up, right? Being a teenager and even early into the 20s, there's always this time between when you're a child and when you actually know who you are. And there's this time, whether it's 3 years or 10 or 15, some 20, who knows? But it's like, who am I? What am I supposed to do? What's my purpose? And all those times. So it kind of reminds me, like when I was in college, I was really inspired by the literature and the biology and even economics. So beautiful. And I studied and I got decent grades most of the time, but I'd be the guy up there talking to the professor after class about what he had just, preached about, right? Yeah. And it's like, oh man, 17 levels of irony, and stuff like that. And then maybe I didn't study that hard to get the grades. Were you kind of like that, where you were inspired?
Were
by
I not
school?
Study that hard? Yeah,
no,
that was
the inspiration.
You nailed it. That's exactly. No, I had really 2 excellent professors when I was in college, and probably helped motivate me as well. One was David Keller, and the other was John Barton, and both of them just did excellent classes. They, I can't remember anything specifically, but I do remember being just enthralled about the way they laid out the story and made you want to read more, especially and then there was, we would take little field trips and we went to a couple of Shakespeare plays, and which I was not a big fan of Shakespeare, but it was once you start and heard the stories that always stuck with me, and stories are how we communicate. That's what we're doing right now. How many stories have we already told so far? We're 9 minutes into this, and we've already told a half a dozen or a dozen stories. I mean, our brains are hardwired for story. That's just how we communicate. So it was that kind of set the anchor for me, I guess, with those 2 professors. And I read a lot. When I was single, I didn't even have a TV because I read all the time. and read just lots of different stuff. Even when I was a kid, I read the Hardy Boys series. I had probably most of them, probably not all of them, but most of them. So stories have always fascinated me.
That's beautiful, and so it's a major point. And also, it turns out now, in retrospect, that's sort of your gifting.
Yeah,
right.
I think I would feel I have a gift in writing and storytelling.
Yes, and one thing that I always come back to is I like to encourage people, whoever's out there in the universe listening, that we all are gifted in some way.
Right.
And those years where you don't know what your gifting, your calling, your passion's going to be, it's kind of one of my, not a soapbox. I don't even know the right word. Maybe you know it. It's one of my burdens in a way, is for teens. And I know what I was like at 17, 18. And for people that don't quite know where they fit in and what they're good at and their gifting and calling and passion is yet, don't even worry about it. It'll come to you at the time. And so the best thing you can do really is, oil up your boots, polish your armor, and read. As you said, in your case, it was reading all those years that built all that knowledge and perspective into you.
Yeah, because when you read a lot or you listen, and the other thing, and I watch some, a lot of movies too and stories on TV now. You start noticing what makes a good story and what makes a bad story. One of my pet peeves, quite honestly, is when I'm talking to somebody else, say, "Oh, I can't tell a story." Yeah, you can. I mean, you're telling me a story right now. The fact when you say I can't tell a story, that's a story, and you're telling me one. And you may not feel confident in it, or you may not have learned to hone your skills, but you're telling stories.
Just take off right now and embellish on the fact of how you're just the worst storyteller ever in the history of mankind. Yeah. And hey, that'll be a good story.
Yeah. It's just so, and there's things that some people can do to make their storytelling better, but it's a learning process. I mean, you and I know we're still working on our talents and our gifts and our storytelling. I hope when I tell a story next year, it's better than this year,
Well, that's true. I mean, hopefully we all are learning and growing and improving. And I think it's really about, if you're 15 and don't know who you are and don't know what you want to do, or 45, midlife crisis, and your life's empty and boring. It's like, do what you love, whether it's reading, writing, painting, helping people, whatever. And if you do what you love to do and you're passionate about and everything, usually things will fall into place, right?
Yeah. I guess there's a little caveat. I'm a little more of not a pessimist, but a little bit more of a realist. You got to take all that stuff with a grain of salt. You have to work at it. Like I cannot, like some people say, I can't tell a story. I cannot draw. If you ask me to draw a stick, what is that? So.
Now, Frank, everyone is an artist. We just got to draw it out of you.
Yeah. Right? Like Picasso, that looks normal to me.
Now, if you cover yourself in paint and roll around on a canvas,
that's
you never know.
That's not art to me. So I know it is. And those people that like to roll around on canvas, it's not, it's, casting aspersions on your creative artwork, but it's just like, so, you have to find. I was talking with a friend the other night about this. It's like, we're going to write no matter what. And so when you find that thing that you really enjoy, maybe it's cooking, maybe it's calling people or writing notes of encouragement, or just checking, giving people a ride to the hospital or church or to the, whatever it is. If you can talk to people and people are comfortable. You and I yesterday, you met with a guy and you said, this guy just, he connects with just everybody. That's a gift, So if that is your gift, then that's what you ought to work on it. And that's where, it's frustrating, hard to develop it, but there's also sheer joy too. And so, that's part of what I try to do, is encourage people to find, like you do. And in your story, I know over the years, you've helped tons of people, and in even areas that you may not even have an interest in, but you see they do, and you help them get started or nudge them along a little bit,
Well, thank you. So let me ask you now, after high school,
right,
you went into university. So go kind of like answer this. Like, where'd you go to school at, university? And then how did you get into arts and entertainment?
I didn't get into the arts and entertainment till well after I started working, because to show you my depth and insight, I was like, how can you make any money writing a story? That's dumb. I'm going to become an accountant. Accountants make good money. And the more I took accounting, the more I didn't like it. And I was a double major in undergraduate school, Harding in accounting and economics. And then I went to Temple University where I got my MBA. And so all that's, numbers oriented and all that. I was, where the light shine, this would be a story about sometimes you can't deny it. So I was working at a company, and they brought in a management specialist guru, and there's me and the other managers in the room, and the guy says, all right, we're going to do an exercise. I want everybody to close their eyes and, let your mind go blank. And then I'm going to ask you a question. Get out a piece of paper and have your pen ready, and don't even think about it. Just answer the first thing that pops into your mind when you hear my question. So we all did that. We all got ready, had our eyes closed, were waiting on the question. And the question was, what do you want to do in 5 years that you haven't done today? And without even thinking, I wrote on my piece of paper, write a book. Well, all these other guys are like, I want to be the top 10 managers. I want to increase sales by, this percent, or I want to make this much profit. Matter of fact, Gary Ferguson was sitting right next to me, and he looked over at my answer and he said, what the heck is that? Write a book, because I was like, Gary, I don't know. He said, write the first thing that popped in my mind. So I was well in my professional career before I decided to really start focusing on writing.
And also part of that was you got married. I was children, married. And you were a man providing for your family as an accountant. Yeah. And you all
I didn't do accounting. I moved into financial planning, was in sales.
Okay. So but you were a guy with a job providing for your family, and you kind of had this subconscious dream of really being a writer that came out that day.
Right. Yeah. And so I tried to merge the two and learn and take classes, and with writing, like anything else, the way you get better is you just do it. I mean, I've taught some writing classes, and I worked in writing groups. I can tell you the first thing anybody writes is going to be lousy. It's like anything else. It's like the first time you try to bake a cake, it's, even though you're reading a recipe, it's probably not going to turn out the way you think, but you stay with it. And so, but when you have this passion, I mean, I dream stories, and, and I listen to conversations, and I hear bits and pieces of conversation. I think, ooh, I can use that somewhere. So I'm always thinking of stories, and I love it. To me, that is my gift from God, to write stories and help other people write stories or tell their stories. So I cannot not write. I tried that for a while.
Okay, so tell us all now. You had the moment at the corporate situation, like, oh, this guy's the weirdo.
Exactly.
So how'd you get from there to writing a movie that's coming out this Christmas on TV?
All right, so I joined. Had a friend of mine, and everybody made fun of me in the which was fine. I mean, we have people make fun of guys do that, right? And we'd make fun of each other instead of being warm and sensitive. So, and it was no big deal.
Isn't it fun though?
Yeah, it is kind of fun. And then you say some funny stuff. So I joined the Dallas Screenwriters Association, got started. This was, 20 years ago. Took classes, went out to went down to Austin Film Festival, took some of their classes and all that, which helped quite a bit. And just practiced and stayed with it, and pitched things. So like you were nice enough to talk about Ginger Snap Christmas, so I took along, and this is kind of a fun story. So I wrote Ginger Snap Christmas with my mother, because I was at her house during the holidays. I took an online class, how to write a Christmas movie, and she was listening. So to make this story really short for the show, We wrote Ginger Snap Christmas together. My mother's 85 years old at the time. We had a blast writing it. It's got picked up. We filmed it in March. It's going to come out this fall, Christmas time. Not sure where, but it will be out. And it was a lot of fun, and it's a good story. I mean, people that worked on it, the director, the actors, they would, they loved it. And
that's the coolest thing, to write a screenplay with your mom.
Yeah.
And it's a Christmas story.
It's a Christmas story. I mean, she's the expert on Hallmark Christmas movies, not me. She knows.
I think you told me that it was a recipe from part of your family.
Okay. So now, so the story is Ginger Snap Christmas. The story is, in the movie, is that the lead character finds the recipe from her great-grandmother's cookbook, which was, my mother actually has the cookbook from her grandmother, and then there's a ginger snap recipe. And so she uses the ginger snap recipe to make friends in the neighborhood, and they're having a benefit for the children's clinic, and they auction off the ginger snap recipe, which everybody in the neighborhood knows is the best ginger snap recipe in the world. So it was a lot of fun to write. We had a good time with it. And like I said, I went out to LA, watched them film, which was very new to me. Never done that before.
That's got to be the most exciting thing, to write a screenplay with your mom,
right,
and then go on set,
right,
in LA and see the movies being manifest.
So imagine, this is what I told Mom. I said, imagine, Mom, you and I were sitting around the kitchen table in Searcy, Arkansas, where my mother lives, and we're coming up with this stuff, and we write it, and now we're in LA, and they're filming it, and who knows, I mean, this is not hyperbole. Literally, who knows where it can be seen around the world. So this idea that we have, this is the thing that fascinates me about writing. This, to me, is the miracle of writing. We had this Christmas story idea sitting at the kitchen table in Searcy, Arkansas, in the living room, working on it. And now it's going to go out, in the world, and people,
and be there forever.
And
because movies, like, once they're out there, boom, it's out there.
Hopefully, if it's a good one, it'll last. People, you never know how people are going to react to it. But I tell you, we got a lot of positive feedback from as they were filming. I mean, I had the actors coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I really enjoyed this, and this was fun to work on." And one of the fun things about it was, I was actually one of the background actors in one of the scenes, and the lead actor, she's up there, and she goes, "Oh, I forgot my line." Well, I knew the line. I wrote it. I was going to shout it out, but I thought, well, the director probably wouldn't like that, so I kept quiet, and they fed her line. But yeah, that's really exciting. The stuff that you write, to see it up there, and then to see it on the screen, just right there as they're doing the,
It's the most tender, beautiful thing. This was your spark,
right?
The inspiration, the idea of the heart of the story,
right?
And you and your mom collaborated, and probably other people too.
Yeah.
And then to see that come to life, and the whole world's going to see it.
Yeah.
And one more thing is, like,
sure,
nowadays when you make a movie, because of so many streaming avenues. And then now I have a smart TV, so I have like 1,000 channels that are free,
right.
And there's all these movie channels. They're playing this old, obscure, Marlon Brando stuff, and these like indie movies that would never see the light of day. And now they're on there like all the time. And I'm telling you, movies are like rock bands now. Once they're out there, good or bad, they're out there forever. Not to say your movie, because I know your movie is going to be splendid. And
thank you.
Great rave reviews, and like, everybody get tired of it on Hallmark, right? Or, wherever. But let's go back to, before I forget, I want to know more, though, how you went from, being a successful writer with a movie going to be on TV and all. But where'd you go from that day? I didn't get the story as clearly as I'd like. That day in the corporate office.
Oh, so
tell me some steps.
It's a long journey. So first,
you went to writing classes.
Went to some writing classes. I joined, which I encourage people to. I joined Dallas Screenwriters Association, which at one point it was quite large. It's a lot smaller organization now, and So, but I encourage people who are listening to this that are not in doubt. I mean, find a writing group. Even if now with Zoom and online, you can get online. There's several places to do it, but find a writing group for two things. Well, several, but two of them are: one is you learn from others, and then two, you can also encourage others. I'm in a writing group right now. There's 6 of us, and we were together in a class last fall. We got along so well, we stay together. Matter of fact, I talked to one of them this morning. She's moved to Spain. So she's over in Spain right now. We still Zoomed this morning and talked for about 30 minutes about our writing stuff, what our writing projects are and where are we going. So it provides encouragement. It'll give you some lessons. And then, you don't reinvent the wheel. If somebody says, hey, I took this other class, this is what I learned, boom, boom, boom. New writers need to learn that too. So go to that class or find out or read that book. There's tons of books about it. But the big thing is just start writing, because you're never going to get better until you start writing. And, if you write junk, that's okay. Learn from it, throw it out, and start a new story,
But that's a major point, though, about the collaboration with others.
Right.
And iron sharpens iron. And when you are part of a community of writers, you're going to learn from each other. All the boats rise. And that is a very profound thing about being part of a church community, a writing community, whatever if you're a welder, hang with the other really good welders, and you'll be better at your craft. So, so you were in the Writers Guild. And then
no, I've never been in the Writers Guild.
What was it? What did you call it?
Dallas Screenwriters Association.
It
was a logo. We used to joke, and I was president for a few years for the group. I used to joke it was for people that can't afford therapy. We got together.
Well, okay, but that's
so you help each other.
So you're not a gilding. You're an associator. I won't say what's coming to mind.
Right.
So you're an associate.
Yeah, and I was.
So you became like the leader of that, though.
Yeah, I was the president for I think 4 years. This was probably 20 years ago. But
so that's because you were in it for many, many years. You knew everybody, and they said we should just lift up Frank as president.
I wasn't there. I wasn't there that night. And they said, who can we get to volunteer to be president? No, there was a group of us. We had a board that was Mary Weger was on there, Patty Wall, Sandra, and I'm trying to remember who. Mike Ferris, who's still here local. Sandra Payne is out in L.A. now. She's done a ton of stories for kids shows, and she's writing. And so it's definitely a group effort. It really, like you said, the iron sharpen irons. People encourage each other, because being a writer is like anything. If you're an artist or whatever, at some point you have to do it. And being a writer, you're usually in a room by yourself. And so you need the social time and encourage. Plus, you need good ideas. You need to listen to people's stories, and their successes and their heartaches, and listen to that and think, okay, there's a story right there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other craft or artistic endeavor where you're going to spend so much time writing and doing the work and doing the research behind the scenes. No accolades, no affirmation, no nothing,
right?
As much as writing.
And usually it's the other way around. They're like, what did you do all day? Well, I wrote 3 words. I wrote 3 pages. 3 pages. How hard can that be? Well, if you haven't written them, it's hard. It's
it probably gets harder. The better writer you are, the harder it gets, I'm sure.
Well, who is it? I can't remember who said this. It's somebody like Ben Franklin or somebody said, here's this letter is unusually long. I didn't have the time to write a short letter. So, I mean, it takes a lot of work to edit. But if you're given that gift, or, one of the interesting things to me is in Exodus, I think it's in Exodus, I think chapter 33 or something, it talks about people that were given the spirit of creativity. It actually says that, the spirit of creativity. And one guy's given the spirit of creativity in fashioning gold, and another guy in wood, and another guy iron, or something like that. So there is truly a spirit of creativity that is out there that you try and attach to. Now, some people will call it a muse, or I'm in this group, this fantastic writing group right now called Story Summit, and it is David Kirkpatrick is the leader of that, and he talks about your daemon, which is your inspiration to write, your passion to write. So those kind of things, I mean, it's out there, but you've got to nurture. It's like anything else. You've got to nurture it. It's, who's the guy that won the PGA golf tournament? Sonny Thomas. I bet you he practiced a few times before he went out there and won the tournament, right? So it's
it's funny you just said that, and there's such a parallel between golf and being a writer
or any art, right? Yeah.
Well, golf though, I mean, they're like the lonely guy that's
right.
out there practicing at the driving range to get their swing just right, or playing all these decades,
right.
to get to that point where they're on TV and win millions of dollars. And writer, so you're like a golfer, dude.
Hopefully my writing is better than my golf. I'd say the only good thing you can say about my golf game is I'm not slow. My handicap is the maximum allowable by law, but I'm not going to slow you down. I mean,
so what you're saying is you get the best golf cart, the one with the charged up battery.
No, I'm not one of those guys that wiggles the club and looks and wiggles and steps back. I'm like, I get up there and swing, They 1 or 2 practice swings and go.
So you casually walk up and just hit it. Let's go to the next
Happy
one.
Gilmore, the ice hockey. Yeah, you're not, throw the grass up in the air, see which way the wind. Nah, I just hit it and go. So, but hopefully my writing is better than but golf is a lot of fun. I haven't played in a few years, but it is a lot of fun.
You know what? You and I should play golf. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
I played golf like every Monday back when my life was easier. Like I had a couple of successful clubs and
oh yeah, you're cool.
Joel and I, we'd go play golf on Mondays. I had a Jag and everything. And then all these changes happened and everything. And so then I was racing motocross for a while. And
I would never do that.
When I got my dirt bike,
I would never do that.
My golf clubs just sat there because I had a dirt bike now and I was racing, 10, 15 years of that. So now I sold my dirt bike and I'm on a soccer team. So I play soccer in a league and it's just awesome. But I've been wanting to play golf again, and all my friends pretty much don't play golf.
Because they're not any good, or they're better than you.
You're my friend now. No, they don't play.
Oh.
Okay,
because the good golfers don't like playing with bad golfers.
Oh, no. Now, Jim Heath, Reverend Horton Heath, he shoots par and under.
Yeah. Those par guys are close to par. Yeah. They don't like us, high par guys because it messes them. Like, hey, I go out and have a good time and fellowship, friendship and chatting. So I'm all for it. Yeah.
Well, I'm, the best.
You said something. It triggered a thought. What was?
Okay, Frank's going back to something important. Go ahead.
It's not important. It's just a thought. It's funny how, the dirt bike riding or motocross to you is really a big thing. That's never been a thing, which is great because everybody has their different interests and everybody has their likes and dislikes. And I don't care a thing about, if you said, hey, go watch me, I might do that. But, but there better be some cold beverages around too.
Well, what's funny is I think, my dad got me a dirt bike in the 70s. I think he was trying to kill me or something. But it's like we went and saw.
He's trying to reduce his grocery bill.
Yeah,
Get Russell a dirt bike.
We saw On Any Sunday in the 70s, and every kid in America went and got a dirt bike, the next week. At least the ones that had the, crazy parents that would let them do it. So I got addicted to racing motocross and in the 70s and all that. So I rejoined it back in like 2003 or 4, started riding and racing and built a motocross track and all that stuff. So it's a beautiful European sport. It's like over 100 years old. It's a European sport. And it's been a part of my life. I love the motocross. I have a lot of friends that are pros and that came through and raced at my motocross track that are on TV now and all that stuff. But you're right. It's an extreme sport, and you got to count the cost before you get in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I got out of it because I finally grew up again. And then, but golf, we must do that sometime.
Yeah, I'm all up for that.
I was going to say.
There's a good, now here's the thing you're talking about. When I go play golf with my church-going friends, I tell them I play New Testament golf, not Old Testament golf. And they're like, what does that mean? So Old Testament is by the law. You have a lot of rules. I'm more of grace. I have a lot of grace when I play golf. So I'm a New Testament golf.
That is a good one.
The ones that are smart chuckle at that joke. The other ones are like, huh? What's that? So it's
You touched on something that's like a modern phenomenon. It's like something I think about all the time. Like one of the hardest things about being a human, in the year like 2022, that's our year, right? I'm like,
most of it.
You have to like being funny is like really important, right?
I think so.
And you have to be around people that are smart enough to get your joke.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you ever see Idiocracy? The movie?
Oh yeah, I love that movie. I love that. That's a documentary. That's not a movie. It's a documentary.
That's funny.
It's becoming a documentary.
It's a time capsule of the future, right? So it's profound. I think Mike Judge wrote that. I think he used to hang out at the Prophet Bar in Deep Ellum. It's like he's so profound. King of the Hill, all his stuff is profound. So anyway, I like you because you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
First of all, you're funny, and you're smart enough to get my jokes.
Yeah, that's important. To get your jokes. This is your show, hopefully, so I should get your jokes.
No, this is your show today because it's all about you. All right. So let's get back to Frank. Let's
go back to Frank.
So you have a movie that's been bought and
Ginger Snap Christmas.
Going to be going out.
It'll be out this fall, right? Yeah.
So look at that, and when you see Frank at the grocery store, you can ask him for his autograph and all.
Yeah.
So
buy me some Bluebell ice cream.
So let's go to. So what are you passionate about now? You're
a great thing.
You're a real writer.
Yeah, I'm a real writer. I've got a couple of other projects in the works. You and I are working on a project, so that's kind of fun to do. I've got a couple of TV show projects that are moving along, or one of them's moving along. One's just kind of puttering along. But like I said, I love to write. And getting in this, sometimes people like, oh, I want to be a writer or director. I don't want to direct. I don't want to, I don't want to be a writer. I'm not going to write. I'm not going to be like Sylvester Stallone that writes Rocky so I can be the star in it. I have no compunction to do that. Right. I love writing. I would like to learn that part of the business and maybe putting the parts together a little bit and watch that. But I just love stories. I mean, just imagine like this. I thought about this a few years ago. I mean, we communicate in stories our whole life, but then people started writing it down and started sharing stories, right? And I use this sometimes when I teach classes. Just think, some guy is watching Moses bring the 10 Commandments down from the mountain. And somebody in that group said, you know what? Maybe we ought to write this down. It's like, dear God spoke to this guy, and probably we should write that down. Stories are important.
I love the way you casually imagine that as it almost didn't happen.
Right.
So it says a lot. To me, we have to wax theological now and say, okay.
Oh, this is going to be
good. It's like
because my theology is a little different.
What if that didn't happen? Right. Or how much did God make that happen? You just touched on something.
Not really, no. The Bible and being as a writer, when you read the Bible, and I tell people even that don't believe in God, you ought to read the Bible, and because of the stories that are in there. And it's just human nature. It's obviously the Bible is a story of man and God's relationship and how it develops over time. But even if you say, I don't believe in God, that's a bunch of hooey. Okay, fine. Read the Bible. Read Judges. What in the world? And people, read about David. I mean, you talk about a guy that should be on Jerry Springer for a full year. The whole David family, all that mess.
I know. What's the Bible rated? Yeah. Like if it's really done as an accurate movie. Don't even get me
started on that one. Don't even get me started.
It's at least NC-17. It's accurately portrayed.
Parts of it are. I'm not even going to touch that topic because that's one of my. It needs to be told the way it's written.
Well, I'll tell you something.
You don't want to. I used to joke with my dad. How come there's never been a vacation Bible school based on the Song of Solomon? He was just kind of,
Well, that's kind of funny, and you could do it maybe at the older ages. Vacation
no, you cannot. You cannot.
Okay, how about for the young couples vacation?
Yeah,
young couples marriage retreat. Yeah. I'm sure they do.
Young married couple retreat, Song of Solomon theme.
I'm going to just say this. I'm going to go out and walk on the water here. There are being movies made that are really going to portray the character of God, the true biblical reality, and it's going to shock everybody. And I know of some rumblings of things going on. We're working on things that we want to see happen, and I'm praying, and I know it's going to happen.
All right. So here's talk about that. A friend of mine showed me an idea for a movie. We had breakfast earlier this week. Or actually, she sent this to me a couple of weeks ago. I was reading. She sent me some what they call lookbooks, and so there's this one. I don't know a lot of the details, but there's a verse in the Bible, and I think in John where Jesus said he's talking to some other guys, and somebody's talking about when they're going to die and all this, and Jesus says, "Well, what if he lives forever? That's none of your business. He may live forever." Probably won't, probably didn't, but he might. So somebody took that little nugget, that little tiny verse, and said, "Ooh, what if one of the apostles did live forever? And then how would he, and what was the, there's a Scottish story about, anyway, several people have done that living more. So I thought, isn't that interesting to come up with that story? I didn't write it. I did write the story about Rahab, though. That's an interesting story. That always fascinated me. Where did Rahab get her faith? How did she was in Jericho. How did she even, I think some of the Jews snuck over there to visit old Rahab before.
Oh, wow. So you just said a lot. Okay. So that my brain goes theological again, but
that's all right.
Rahab was not one of the Jews.
Right.
And she just knew. So some people.
She was a prostitute. She was in the city wall. She was running a business. She was a businesswoman.
Well, the cynics would say that she just saw the change in the wind and picked the right side.
How would she know to do that?
Well, it's just a smart chick, a street smart prostitute.
How would she?
I would say, though, that it was God's sovereign destiny. And then that's the theological question that we all ask all the time is, so did God, give her the inspiration to think this way? How much does God control and manipulate?
A lot of faith. I mean, we could talk about this. We better, I don't know where you want your deal to go, but yeah, and to me that there is no definitive answer. You and I could talk, and we could bring in 10 other people and talk for another 10 hours, and we still won't have the real answer because we don't know.
That's the cue. Bring the 10 theologians in.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. It's just, that, but any story.
But we do know, Frank, it's whatever you and I decide and say today.
Yeah, that would be
that is the truth.
That would be, I don't even buy into think, whatever I come up with is true. It's like, no, whatever I come up with is an opinion. I may get close to the truth, but
well, the Supreme Court justices, they write opinions.
They do.
So, hey, that puts you up pretty high.
Yeah, I'm sure that's it.
So no, one more thing before we get back to you. Theologically, I would say that we can know a lot of that because you suggested people read the Bible, and I totally agree.
Yeah,
the most amazing compilation of prophetic, poetic, historic.
Yeah, and
theological books, in one collection. And we do know that Rahab was a harlot. She did, by faith, risk her life to help God's people.
Right.
She's in Hebrews 11, the Hall of Faith.
Yeah.
The Hall of Fame.
Yeah, she's not one of the she's like in, we're not going to talk about, she's in Hebrews 11, If I lived back then, I wouldn't be in Hebrews 11.
And she's the sore thumb of Hebrews 11. So, okay, well, let me
have a story about that, but I'm not going to tell it.
Okay, I have a question.
Go back to Frank.
Before we go too much, present day and everything. So now looking back at your life as a child in high school and, learning how to be a writer and working in the corporate world, and then now you're really a pro writer. That's all you do. You're like this guy.
I'm working at it. Yeah.
You're like Kevin Costner in Tin Cup. You're this half golfer, half writer guy. You have pen will travel. And so
laptop now.
What did you? So here's my question. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So when you look back, what did you think your life was going to be like?
It didn't turn out to what I thought it'd be like. That's for sure. I don't know. That's a great question. Because I've tried a few things. I tried a few business startups that failed. I'm thankful again to both of my parents because they were always encouraging. Like, and if it, when it failed, it was like, okay, try something else. And So, because I can remember a couple of times I would tell Dad, this isn't working out. I want to quit even the writing. And he's like, well, I guess you can, but, you don't know who reads your stories and likes. So I have this email I send out, Friday from Frank, from time to time. It's an email of encouragement. And, it's like, I've been doing that for years. I've thought about putting it, in a book. I did put it in a couple of them in a book, and that didn't really do anything. I don't know what to do with it. I think I'm going to quit. He says, why would you quit? You don't know who you're helping. Like, that's a good point. You don't know who you're helping. So, and I enjoy doing it. I like posing those questions about,
It's like you plant the seeds.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's a scripture again. It says, some sow, some water, and God gives the increase. So in life, you plant the seeds of your writing or your encouragements, and like we've talked about, just trying to help everybody around you and become a better person. And you don't judge them. It's like that whole.
Judging part's fun.
Well, that analogy.
Not supposed to do that, but it's the.
Well,
fun
there's
part.
that analogy like you plant the seeds,
right,
and they're in the garden, and you wait. But if you go like scrape them up and look at the seeds.
Yeah, is this growing it? No, nothing happens. What is it gonna...
Right. So
it reminds me about a different joke. Yeah, it's good humor. So, and you talked about Hebrews. In Hebrews, I'm not sure where it is. I think it's Hebrews 3. There's a verse in there that says, as long as it's called today, encourage one another. It's like, that's pretty clear. It's not wait till the 15th of the month. As long as it's called today, you encourage them. So when you texted me and said, hey, are you coming today? Okay, well, I guess I need to be encouraging as much as I can. And it is pretty simple. And how you encourage is different things.
I'm glad I worded it that way.
Yeah.
I had the today in there, so it trigger you.
So it better be nice.
Trigger word.
Trigger word. Don't trigger me.
No, it's a good trigger.
Don't even get me started on that line.
Good trigger, good trigger.
Yeah.
So Trigger was, now I'm so glad that Trigger came up.
Okay. Yeah, Roy Rogers' horse.
Yes. And,
that's what I think of Trigger. Like, that's a trigger. No, that's not a horse.
Okay. So when you were growing up, I
better stop because I'll get carried away on this.
So tell me your child years, what television shows did you dig?
Oh man, that was which probably had a lot more to do with it. Loved Get Smart. Used to hate that Disney was on Sunday nights because we went to church Sunday morning and Sunday night, so I would miss Disney, or maybe watch the first part. Gunsmoke,
The Castle and Tinkerbell flying, and then the movie.
I love the comedies. Get Smart. I love the Rockford Files. That was, and let's see, here's some of the other comedies that were back then. And just the other night I watched Young Frankenstein, made in 1974, Mel Brooks film. Mel Brooks is brilliant, just on so many levels, and love. Actually, I got into Monty Python because that was on some of the PBS channels. British humor is so clever. It's just miles beyond, most other people. Now, some people hate it. They can't stand to watch 2 minutes of it, but I love British humor. And so, those kind of shows.
Wait, does Ted Lasso count?
I haven't watched that. I need to watch that. Matter of fact, I went to Apple TV app yesterday, and then I got distracted on something, and I didn't.
Okay, so listen,
I want to watch Ted Lasso.
I want to sharpen your iron.
Okay.
Go back to Apple.
Yeah.
Watch Ted Lasso, but the best show on Apple is The Morning Show.
Okay.
Very well written.
Okay.
Probably the best modern day TV network soap opera.
Right.
With Aniston and Steve Carell and Reese Witherspoon. It's like it's a television network. Backstage during the virus lockdown and the Me Too thing and everything. So, I'm recommending that.
There's a show about the BBC television show, too, that's really very clever. And you talk about some of the old British comedies, Are You Being Served? The Blackadder is, if it's not my favorite, it's at the top of my list.
Okay, I'm going to admit I'm with you on a bunch of those, and I'm not with you on some of those.
Right, that's all right.
But that's okay. Yeah, hey,
you missed the bus.
You'll catch up with me someday. You keep riding there. Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's funny. Time waits for no one.
As they say.
And, everything comes to an end. And this has been fun and we're flying. It's like
Right.
I'm looking at the clock. So we have a little bit more time to ask you a question I ask every guest.
All right.
Okay. And it's nothing. I'm thinking of all these funny things I could say right now. But
Good.
here's the question.
Be funny.
I'm not that funny.
Truth is often spoken in jest.
I'm a
What's his name
wannabe comedian. I would do stand up, except I have to drive around standing up. It sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah,
I want to be
can
I be the reclining comedian?
Yeah, exactly.
So here it is.
All right,
my
fire
friend.
away.
So just share with us what do you think about God? Tell us what he's like. Because you've already given away that you believe.
Yeah, I do believe it. I've had a faith thing, and that's another thing I'm thankful for from my parents of that. But it's also something like other thing you got to stay with. So this guy has passed away a few years ago, but one of my favorite people at church, he had 2 degrees in theology, and he would say, "I'm still learning. There's stuff I still need to know and read about and research." So you're never the one of the aspects of God that's very fascinating is a kid can get it. He can get it in a simple little song. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. You can spend your whole life, and this guy with 2 degrees in theology, and he still doesn't. You'll never understand it all. You're just not going to get. I had a conversation last week with a guy that grew up in England, and he's fascinated by the American view of theology and God versus the European view of God. Very different, completely different. There was a book that I read a few years ago, America's Four Gods, written by these 2 sociology professors down in Baylor. So it's more of a mystery, and the parts that I don't understand, they don't bother me. Because I'll figure it out one day, But I do believe that there is a God. I enjoy talking to people as long as I can do it without getting fired up. One of my best friends is an atheist. He and I grew up together in the church, but he decided somewhere in life, around college, that he was an atheist. So I tell Bob, it's like, "You're my favorite atheist in the world. I love you." And he laughs and that's okay that we disagree. We chat about it. So it's God is a complex thing, but when it comes down to it, He created the world. I believe He loves mankind. He's a compassionate God. He's a patient God. And it's one that I feel like He wants a relationship, but like anything else, you have to work at it. So. I don't know if that helps you with an answer or not.
No, that was a great answer. And what I see in your answer is a very wise revelation that you've made part of your reality, your belief system, and you understand. And don't even, we could talk about the word understand, for 30 minutes, but you just said that you can't understand it all.
Right.
But you also said that He's compassionate and loving and patient and kind. And therefore, when we know His character, from however God reveals Himself to us, He does it different with everyone. But when you know His character, then you can go through all the stuff. Can you imagine Jews being put in train cars to go to Auschwitz and, writing in blood, like, I love, God is with us and stuff like that? It's because they knew God's character by a spirit, in a spiritual way. And everything in their life, the circumstances looked like God had abandoned them or everything, but they never gave up knowing His character.
Yeah.
And that His agenda is way beyond our agenda, because ours is temporary.
Yeah.
We're all seeking comfort.
You talk about a long-range plan. He's got it, So it's a challenge, and it used to, I guess one of the epiphanies that I had, because this is an oversimplification, but we used to kind of put ourselves in 2 different camps about the believers and the non-believers, right? And the believers are better people than the non-believers. Then I started learning and say, wait a minute, that non-believer, he wants the same thing I want. He wants a happy life. He wants his kids to be happy, his family to be happy. He may have some financial goals he wants to hit, or he wants to own a nice I kind of have those things too, but how he chooses a different way to get there than I do. I believe true happiness, and I think there's a difference between being happy and content. As Paul says, I have learned to be content. That tells you it's a process, and I've learned to be content in all situations where I have a whole lot or I don't have much at all. I have learned to be content. And I think that's the process that we go. And to me, story helped the avenue. Not only stories in the Bible, but other stories as well, and people that are searching for, like you and I are talking about with your story. What's my real purpose in life? What's my mission? So that at the end of the day, I can look back and say, yeah, you know what? I nailed it, or no, man, I missed bits and pieces of it, but overall I nailed it. Or do people at the end of their lives and I have no idea why I'm here.
It's beautiful. I think the more we know his story,
right,
the more we can write our story.
Exactly.
And we can help other people with their story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me take this chance to remind everyone, go and buy Russell's book, because every answer to life is in this book. This is like you read the Bible and you read Russell's book, because this is like a lot of time and years and, searching and seeking, and God gave me answers. And he's let me know people like Frank on the show today. So check out my book. It's on Amazon and all that. This is our sponsor. And, we just thank you so much for joining us and tuning in to watch the show today. And I'm so thankful, Frank, for you joining and sharing your awesome personality, character, and heart with us all. Because
I appreciate the kind words.
You're an amazing guy.
Thank you. It's very kind of you.
Trust me, I'm speaking truth. It's not about kindness, really.
Okay.
Although,
I appreciate it.
That's what I think, man.
I appreciate it.
So thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you next time on the Russell Hobbs Show.